It began with a single image, faint, distant, almost meaningless at first glance, a pale blur suspended against the black canvas of space. But when NASA released the enhanced photographs of 3I Atlas last week, something inside those pixels changed everything. What scientists expected to be a harmless interstellar rock, a silent traveler passing through our solar system, turned out to be something far more deliberate. The reflections weren't random, the light patterns weren't noise, and hidden deep within the data, a rhythm emerged, as if the object was responding to us. For decades, NASA's cameras have captured the beauty of the cosmos, but never has a single image raised this much fear. The angles, the geometry, the strange shadow that shouldn't exist, all point to one chilling conclusion. 3I Atlas isn't done with us yet. And tonight, we'll uncover what those new images reveal, why they were quietly reclassified, and what has scientists asking the question they never wanted to ask. What if it's still here? Welcome to the Sleep Lab, where science meets the unknown. If you're drawn to mysteries that blur the line between discovery and dread, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and turn on the bell icon, because the universe doesn't wait for us to be ready before it reveals its secrets. When NASA uploaded the new 3I Atlas composite images, they didn't make an announcement. There were no press conferences, no dramatic unveilings, no headlines, just a quiet update buried deep within an astronomical data archive, the kind of place only scientists and the truly obsessed ever visit. But within hours, something strange happened. Screens across observatories in Hawaii, Chile, Madrid, and Canberra began to flicker with the same haunting image, a silvery blur, elongated, shimmering, and disturbingly symmetrical. It wasn't what they expected. It wasn't what it was supposed to be. At first it looked harmless, a dust-covered traveler from another star passing quietly through our solar system. But then researchers noticed the details that shouldn't have existed. The reflection angles were too sharp, the light distribution too precise. Each frame captured a distinct shimmer, rhythmic, intentional, like the blink of a mechanical eye. A quiet chill crept through every lab that saw it. Someone whispered, "It's not tumbling, it's aligning." Emails began flooding internal channels. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory flagged the data for anomalous luminosity behavior. The European Space Agency requested immediate reanalysis. Within 48 hours, what began as a routine image release had become a global investigation. And then the first message leaked, a short anonymous post on an astronomy forum. The object moved between frames. "We didn't move the camera." That single sentence set the internet ablaze. For days, forums and news feeds overflowed with speculation. Was it a satellite malfunction? A photographic artifact? A deliberate hoax? But inside NASA, behind locked conference doors, the mood wasn't one of disbelief, it was fear. Because every attempt to explain the motion failed. The parallax data proved the object had shifted position, ever so slightly, in a way no known natural body could. It wasn't drifting. It was adjusting. The first scientist to notice it was Dr. Marcus Liu, a data analyst at the Deep Space Network. Working late, he noticed the object's reflective streaks formed a repeating pattern across the time-stamped images, almost like frames of a silent film. When he overlaid them, the structure seemed to move. Not randomly, deliberately, toward the camera's field of view. He thought it was impossible. Then he ran the calibration check, and 3 times. The result was always the same. The object had turned ever so slightly, in synchronization with each photographic capture. Word spread quickly through internal channels. One line from Liu's report, later redacted from public release, would echo through the entire community. It's as if it knew we were watching. Soon after, NASA's public-facing site quietly removed the original images. In their place appeared an updated file labeled "Image Integrity Under Review." But by then, dozens of researchers had already downloaded the originals. Within hours, mirrored copies began circulating in private groups. And that's when the real panic began. A group of independent astrophotographers compared the NASA composite to archived 3I Atlas images from earlier in the year. The difference was staggering. The earlier shots showed a faint, uneven blur, typical of a fast-moving interstellar object. But in the new images, the form appeared sharp, structured, and encased in what looked like a faint corona, a ring of light so uniform it resembled the glow of an energy field. Meanwhile, an amateur astronomer in Argentina discovered something else. When the contrast of one frame was boosted beyond standard exposure, faint streaks appeared behind the object, curved, delicate, like ripples trailing through darkness. But the ripples weren't radiating outward. They converged inward, toward the object itself, as if it were absorbing light instead of reflecting it. NASA said nothing, not a word. Days later, a technical memo leaked from the Jet Propulsion Lab describing non-linear light polarization behavior. The phrase meant little to the public, but to physicists, it was a warning bell. It meant that the light bouncing off 3I Atlas wasn't behaving like normal reflection. It was bending, twisting, reorganizing itself. Something inside the object was altering the path of photons. That night, NASA convened an emergency video conference with teams from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, the European Space Agency, and Japan's JAXA Observatory. Cameras were kept off. Names were withheld, but one participant recorded part of the conversation. A faint, trembling voice, believed to be Dr. Elaine Harker, can be heard saying, "If this is natural, then physics is lying to us." No one laughed. No one disagreed. Outside those circles, the world carried on unaware. But within NASA's internal servers, new data folders appeared under restricted access labels: Atlas Class 3 Observation Log. Only a handful of researchers had clearance to view them. Among those who did, several reportedly resigned within the week. What made the images terrifying wasn't what they showed, but what they didn't. In one composite, Atlas appeared faint and distant, a smooth silhouette against starfield noise. In the next, it was slightly closer, more defined. But by the third, something impossible happened. Background stars near the object shifted position. Not blurred, not refracted, moved. The only way that could occur was if the object itself was distorting space around it. For a moment, the unimaginable took shape, a structure traveling between stars, capable of bending light. NASA's official explanation called it sensor interference, but off the record, scientists whispered another word: field. A self-generated field, and possibly magnetic, possibly gravitational, that altered visible space. By the end of the week, the object had earned a new nickname among researchers: the mirror, because no matter how deep they scanned it, the readings reflected back nonsense, light folding on itself, energy spikes vanishing as soon as they appeared. In private Slack channels, scientists posted their fears in fragments. It's not a comet. The curve fits are artificial. Someone tell me we're not seeing a drive system. Then silence. Accounts were deleted. Messages vanished. The final blow came when one more image surfaced, uploaded briefly to an encrypted data sharing hub before disappearing forever. In that frame, 3I Atlas wasn't alone. Behind it, faintly visible, was a secondary reflection, smaller, fainter, tracking in near-perfect formation. For those who saw it, the implication was unmistakable. It wasn't a lone traveler. It was part of something larger. The file was pulled within minutes, but the panic couldn't be contained. Inside the Sleep Lab's research community, whispers grew louder. Some claimed NASA had captured not one, but multiple objects, moving in synchronized formation. Others believed the reflections were scanning drones or automated instruments, each collecting data as they passed through the solar system. A few went further, speculating that what NASA photographed wasn't even solid, but a projection, a signal shaped into visibility by our observation itself. Whatever the truth, one fact was undeniable: the images had changed the story. What began as a scientific curiosity had become an existential riddle. In the following days, astronomers reported minor fluctuations in Earth's magnetosphere, disturbances that aligned perfectly with the timestamps of NASA's last recorded 3I Atlas frame. Coincidence, perhaps, but some insisted it was the object's shadow, a residual echo of its passage, as if the camera's flash had left a burn across the magnetic fabric of our planet. In an internal note later leaked from the European Southern Observatory, one line stood out: "We were never observing it. It was observing us, and it blinked." And that's when the narrative shifted. Scientists stopped talking about motion and reflection. They started asking questions no one wanted answered. Why did NASA release the images at all? Why now after years of silence? And why did the object appear to respond to observation, as though light itself was a trigger? Was it testing us? Watching our reactions? Measuring our curiosity? No one knows. But the silence that followed was louder than any confirmation. The data vanished. The conversation stopped. And all that remained were those images. Ghostly frames that seem to pulse when you stare too long, like they're breathing beneath the pixels, because maybe they are. For now, NASA's official page lists 3I Atlas as inactive, but for the scientists who downloaded those images before they were removed, the story isn't over. They still replay the frames, overlay the data, and whisper the same haunting question. If it could move when we looked at it, what is it doing when we're not? And that's only the beginning, because those new images weren't a conclusion, they were an invitation, a signal that something beyond human comprehension just looked back. And somewhere in the silent halls of NASA, someone already knows what it saw. The first thing scientists noticed was that the new NASA images didn't behave like images at all. They weren't static, they were alive. Each pixel shimmered faintly under analysis, as if the light itself had been encoded with something deeper. When the high-resolution frames of 3I Atlas were processed through NASA's photometric algorithms, a rhythm began to surface, faint, deliberate, and mathematical. At first, the team dismissed it as data compression noise, but then the pattern repeated. Every reflection on the object's surface followed an interval, 142 seconds apart. Not random, not a coincidence. The kind of precision nature never produces without reason. It was almost musical, light flickering like notes from an instrument too ancient and vast for human comprehension. Dr. Elise Garner, a data analyst at the Goddard Space Flight Center, was among the first to speak out. She stared at the spectral data until dawn, her coffee long cold, the numbers looping endlessly across her screen. The ratio embedded within the reflection intensity matched something terrifyingly familiar. The hydrogen spectral line, the universal constant used in scientific communication across the cosmos. It was as if the object was replying using the most fundamental language of the universe. She sent her findings to her superior. Within minutes, her access was revoked. The dataset disappeared from the public research server. By morning, her login credentials no longer existed, but it was too late. A few independent researchers had already seen the anomaly. A physics forum in Germany posted the waveform comparison late that night. The post vanished within 3 hours, but not before screenshots spread like wildfire. A faint pulse, buried inside the brightness pattern of a supposedly inert interstellar rock, repeating the same ratio, over and over again. The scientific world went silent. NASA's official explanation arrived the next day. Artifact interference caused by residual solar reflection. A sentence so clinical, so detached, that it made the truth feel louder by contrast. Because in the shadows of observatories and research labs, no one believed it anymore. They knew what they'd seen. Meanwhile, the data team at JPL tried to replicate the anomaly using light modeling. When they fed the image sequences into simulation, the program crashed. The output corrupted, displaying a looping sequence of coordinates that didn't exist, points in deep space where no known star or planet resided. Someone jokingly called them breadcrumbs, like a trail leading somewhere. No one laughed. The deeper they studied, the more impossible it became. Every image seemed to carry a faint internal structure, not visible to the naked eye, but traceable through reflection mapping. Beneath the grain, faint geometric symmetry began to appear. A hexagonal grid repeating in perfect balance. A natural rock could never hold that kind of precision. At Harvard's Center for Astrophysics, an emergency meeting was held behind closed doors. Scientists debated whether they were seeing an optical illusion or something engineered to look natural until magnified. One researcher whispered a phrase that would later leak online: "This isn't reflection, it's instruction." Across continents, observatories began comparing notes. The European Southern Observatory found the same patterns. So did the Canadian Hydrogen Array. The exact same light intervals, the same spectral echo, as if 3I Atlas were broadcasting through its own surface. using sunlight as the carrier wave, and then the images started changing, not dramatically, subtly. Frames captured 12 hours apart showed the reflection angles shifting by microdegrees. When plotted sequentially, the shift formed a shape, a slow spiraling arc. It wasn't just reflecting light, it was shaping it, manipulating it. Dr. Garner, now working from home under encrypted VPNs, noticed something else. The spiral resembled an orbital projection, not of our solar system, but of a trajectory bending around it. The object wasn't passing by. It was skimming the system's edge, mapping, scanning, learning. The realization spread like a virus among those who still dared to look. One astrophysicist in Chile described the feeling perfectly. It was like watching a flashlight sweep over the ocean, and realizing the ocean is looking back. By week's end, the images were pulled entirely from NASA's open repository. The explanation: pending recalibration of imaging sensors. But every researcher involved in the project received the same internal memo, a request to sign non-disclosure agreements citing national interest. And yet, leaks always find the cracks. One of the last images to escape the firewall came from an unfiltered FTP mirror in Madrid. In it, 3I Atlas appeared to emit a faint corona, a halo of light curling outward in symmetrical arcs, almost like wings. The pattern matched something uncanny: the electromagnetic topology of a radio antenna array. For the first time, someone asked the question aloud: what if the object wasn't built to travel, but to listen? Speculation grew wild, but fear grew faster. In private group chats, scientists began deleting their own notes. Research blogs went dark. Entire accounts vanished overnight. Whatever 3I Atlas was, it had crossed from science into silence. But then, a small amateur observatory in Argentina uploaded something extraordinary. A raw, uncompressed image captured days after the official dataset was shut down. It showed 3I Atlas just before it faded from range. The object wasn't smooth or featureless as once thought. Embedded along its ridge were faint, linear grooves, parallel, evenly spaced, each reflecting in synchronized rhythm with the spectral pulse. In other words, it wasn't random geometry. It was design, and if it was design, it was deliberate. Across the world, researchers whispered one horrifying possibility: the grooves weren't meant to collect light, they were meant to translate it. Each groove acted like an optical processor, bending starlight into coded sequences. The object was using light itself as memory, carrying information across the void. The implications were staggering. For decades, humans had searched for radio signals, believing advanced civilizations would speak through electromagnetic waves. But what if they used the one thing that every star produces, light, to communicate invisibly across galaxies? It wasn't the kind of message we could read. It was a mirror held up to our limitations. Late one night, Dr. Garner sent an encrypted voice note to her colleague before disappearing from all online platforms. If light can carry thought, then the universe has been talking all along. We just weren't bright enough to notice. Days later, her apartment was found empty, her research drives missing, her name quietly removed from the public list of NASA contractors. In the absence of answers, the world filled the void with fear. News outlets speculated about a possible alien signal. Forums debated whether NASA had found proof of technology older than the solar system itself. But in the scientific community, something far more chilling spread: the sense that someone, somewhere, already knew. Because when independent astronomers reprocessed older 3I Atlas images from 2024, the same light patterns appeared faintly in the earliest captures, almost as if the object had been emitting the code from the beginning. It wasn't reacting to our observation. It had been broadcasting all along. And that's when another discovery surfaced, buried deep in the metadata of one of the newest images. An internal tag not meant for public eyes labeled Project Echo. No one knows what it means. NASA has never acknowledged it. But among those who've seen the tag, one theory stands above all others. The project wasn't about studying 3I Atlas. It was about listening to what it was hearing. Because if the light was a language, and if 3I Atlas was receiving as much as it transmitted, then we weren't just observing a visitor. We were eavesdropping on a conversation we were never meant to hear. Somewhere between the silence of stars and the hum of our instruments, A dialogue had been happening for longer than our species had existed, and for the first time, we'd caught a glimpse of it. But the real terror came when NASA's systems picked up one last faint reflection in the following frame. A mirrored version of the same hydrogen sequence, but inverted, like an answer. The object had replied. Then, without explanation, the dataset closed. All public access to the 3I Atlas imaging archive was revoked under a reclassification initiative. Within hours, the mirrors that once hosted the images went blank. The official statement? Ongoing technical maintenance. But those who saw the final files remember one last caption in the internal log before the servers went dark. A line written not by machine, but by a human hand. The light stopped moving. But something else started watching. And that was the moment the mystery of 3I Atlas changed forever, from discovery to dread. Because light isn't supposed to think, and yet somehow it did. The message arrived just after midnight. A terse, encrypted memo sent to a handful of astrophysicists, system analysts, and project leads scattered across NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the European Space Agency, and the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. No explanation. No press release. Just a single line of instruction. Secure conference channel active. Mandatory attendance. By 12:07 a.m., every monitor in that virtual room glowed the same shade of sterile blue. The voices that joined were hushed, almost reluctant. These were the same people who had spent decades chasing comets, charting distant exoplanets, and decoding the quiet language of starlight. But tonight, no one spoke about beauty or discovery. The first image from the new 3I Atlas series had just come through, and the data wasn't following any known law of physics. At first glance, the picture seemed ordinary, a faint grey silhouette surrounded by the empty canvas of deep space. But then, under enhanced spectroscopic filtering, the details began to emerge. Lines, angles, geometry. The light pattern wasn't scattered. It was aligned, as though the object itself had edges. Sharp, symmetrical edges that nature doesn't make. Someone whispered, "It's structured," and the silence that followed was so heavy it could have suffocated sound itself. One by one, the specialists tried to rationalize it. Maybe the telescope's sensors had picked up a reflection. Maybe the imaging array was saturated. But deep down, they already knew what the readings meant. 3I Atlas wasn't tumbling like a rock. It was adjusting, reorienting, as if aware of being watched. The lead engineer from the Deep Space Network spoke next. His voice trembled just enough to betray something he wasn't supposed to feel: fear. The orientation vectors shifted 12 degrees between frames. He said, "We didn't move the lens. It moved itself." A few screens flickered. Someone's microphone caught the faint sound of breathing, slow, deliberate human disbelief. Then, in the middle of the meeting, a new slide appeared. It was one of the enhanced frames taken moments apart. The difference was almost imperceptible, until they layered the two images. When overlaid, the object's position had changed by a fraction of a degree, a course correction so small it shouldn't have been noticeable. Yet there it was, deliberate, precise, and terrifyingly intelligent. For a long time, no one spoke. The only sound came from the faint hum of cooling fans and the static of a distant connection. Then, from somewhere within the NASA channel, a voice said quietly, "So, it's steering?" Nobody answered. But the silence was its own kind of admission. In the following minutes, the atmosphere changed from curiosity to dread. Documents were pulled from public access. Telescope feeds were rerouted through encrypted protocols. Someone tried to archive the session's chat log, but the command was denied. Above the text window, a new banner appeared. "Session monitored, do not record." And that was when the second image dropped. It showed 3I Atlas with a faint corona of light, not reflected sunlight, but something else. The spectral signature didn't match solar radiation. It was too narrow, too controlled, as if the object itself was emitting light in a frequency invisible to the human eye, but caught by the instrument's sensitive lenses. One analyst from the European Space Agency muttered, "It's communicating in wavelengths we can't even perceive." Then came the third image. It was darker. The object appeared smaller, but the background stars, the fixed points of the universe, were slightly distorted, bent inward, as though space itself was being warped around the object's perimeter. A physicist named Dr. Lena Hu tried to explain it away as image compression. But when the curvature matched Einstein's equations for local gravity distortion, she stopped talking mid-sentence. The meeting's moderator, a senior administrator who'd spent 30 years handling data classification, cleared his throat and spoke carefully, like someone choosing each word as if it were a detonator. Effective immediately. All 3I Atlas imagery is to be marked under Project Echo. Dissemination outside authorized channels will be treated as breach of protocol. Project Echo. None of them had ever heard the name before. But within minutes it became the only thing they could think about. Hours passed. The scientists tried to reason through the impossible. How could a 400-meter wide object, supposedly natural, generate measurable gravitational distortions? How could its trajectory shift without propulsion? And why did it align perfectly with Earth's orbital vector for less than a second before correcting itself back into deep space? The answers didn't come. Instead, another question surfaced, one that froze the entire room. What if it wasn't aligning with Earth by accident? When that question appeared in the chat log, someone quietly deleted it. But everyone saw it. Everyone read it. And nobody typed another word for the rest of the session. Later that night, a scientist from the Harvard-Smithsonian Center, a woman named Dr. Aisha Morel, stepped away from her screen, unable to breathe. She had noticed something buried in the raw metadata of the new image set. The timestamp embedded in the file header didn't match NASA's upload time. It was earlier, several hours earlier, and it didn't use coordinated universal time. The system clock was offset by precisely 43 seconds, 43 seconds. The same pulse interval recorded a year earlier when 3I Atlas was vanishing from view. When she mentioned it in the chat, the response was instantaneous. The session was terminated, and her credentials were revoked by morning. Her office key card didn't work when she arrived at the lab. Her name was gone from the staff directory by noon. Meanwhile, the scientists who remained on the project were forced to sign new agreements, digital contracts with blacked-out clauses. Those who refused were quietly reassigned to other missions. The message was clear: stop asking questions, but some couldn't. A handful of researchers formed an encrypted back channel, trading fragments of data before the purge was complete. One astronomer from the Canary Islands Observatory uploaded a compressed version of the third image before his access was cut. It circulated for a few hours among trusted colleagues before vanishing entirely. Yet the few who saw it claimed something extraordinary. In the far corner of the frame, barely visible, there was movement. Not from 3I Atlas, but from behind it. A streak, faint and curving, like something following in its wake. The rumor spread quickly. The images showed not one object, but two. By the next day, Project Echo servers were locked, and that's when the media silence began. Publicly, NASA dismissed the leaks as doctored composites. But inside, panic was rising. If there was another object, it meant 3I Atlas wasn't alone. It meant this wasn't an isolated event. It was part of something coordinated. Within 48 hours, observatories around the world began reorienting their telescopes toward the last known coordinates. Nothing, just the void. Yet something strange began happening with their instruments. Minor fluctuations, background static, electromagnetic interference in the same narrow band as the pulse intervals. It was as if the sky itself was humming. Dr. Hu described it later in her private journal, the last entry she ever made before resigning. "It's not a sound you hear," she wrote. "It's a pressure, like the air before a storm. You feel it in your bones, the sense that something vast is awake." For days afterward, the chatter within the encrypted channels dwindled to silence. Then one evening, a final message appeared. It was from one of the project's senior coordinators, his username redacted, his tone desperate. "Stop looking," it read. It looks back, and then nothing. The server hosting the back channel was shut down at dawn. Weeks later, when NASA finally addressed the anomalous data, their statement was short and clinical. Variations in imagery were due to exposure artifacts and cosmic dust interference. The explanation was neat, safe and hollow. It was designed not to convince, but to end the conversation. But among those who had been in that midnight meeting, there was no closure. Only fear, because the new images didn't just show an object moving, they showed it reacting. Every adjustment, every flare, every distortion seemed to occur right after observation, as if it knew when it was being seen. And now, with every telescope that tries to find it again, there's a lingering hesitation, an unspoken superstition whispered between scientists who once trusted only numbers. What if observation itself is the trigger? Maybe 3I Atlas isn't gone. Maybe it's simply waiting for our gaze to find it again, to acknowledge it, so it can respond. And deep in the servers of NASA's secure data archive, locked behind authorization codes that no one outside the agency will ever see, lies the file that started it all, 3I Atlas Frame 07B. No one talks about it anymore. No one dares to open it. But those who've heard the whispers say that if you look closely enough, just beneath the noise you can see it. A faint reflection, like an eye catching light in the dark. And maybe, just maybe, it's still watching. It started with a sound no one could hear, not a broadcast, not a transmission, but a pulse buried deep in the static of the universe. When NASA released the newly enhanced 3I Atlas images, no one expected the photographs to come alive. Yet the data logs from the telescope revealed something strange, a faint rhythmic fluctuation in the radio field, perfectly synchronized with every shutter click of the imaging system. Each time a picture was taken, a whisper of energy pulsed back, invisible to the naked eye but unmistakable in the data. At first, the analysts thought it was coincidence. Instruments often echo their own signals, reflections, calibration spikes, or compression noise. But this was different. The timing was too precise, 43 seconds apart exactly, over and over. When the telescope recorded, something else recorded back. Inside the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a young data technician noticed it first. She ran a cross-check, filtering out interference from satellites and deep space probes. But the pattern remained, a heartbeat in the silence. She marked it as non-instrumental feedback, a phrase meant to keep questions away, but word spread. By the next morning, multiple observatories, from Chile to Japan, reported identical readings. The same pulse, the same rhythm, aligned perfectly with the moment NASA's cameras pointed toward 3I Atlas. It was as if the object knew it was being watched. Scientists don't believe in coincidence. They test, they model, they explain, yet every test only deepened the confusion. When they pointed the telescope away, the pulse vanished. When they turned back, it returned. Not stronger, not weaker, just patient, waiting. Rumors spread quietly through encrypted forums that the object was responding to optical stimulus. In simpler words, that 3I Atlas was aware. The phrase was never spoken in meetings, only typed in lowercase, buried in logs no one was supposed to read. But awareness is a dangerous word. It suggests intent. At a late-night session inside NASA's Deep Space Communications Hub, an engineer noticed something else. The amplitude of the pulses wasn't constant. It fluctuated like modulation, like data being packed into silence. When they converted the intervals into binary, the numbers formed ratios close to 1.42, the hydrogen line, the universal constant used in theoretical alien communication models. The discovery hit the room like a thunderclap. The hydrogen line is the one frequency that nature repeats endlessly across the cosmos, but never in intervals. Intervals mean timing, and timing means control. For the next 48 hours, the lab operated in lockdown. No one went home. Every second of telescope data was rerouted through secure servers marked Red Priority. Analysts were instructed to stay offline, to stop discussing patterns in public forums. Someone somewhere high above didn't want the connection made. But curiosity is louder than fear. A researcher at the European Southern Observatory refused to stay quiet. He mirrored the data to his private laptop and ran a deeper scan. What he found changed everything. The pulse wasn't a single tone. It carried harmonics, faint echoes like layered frequencies, forming a waveform too deliberate to be random. He described it later in a deleted post. It's not broadcasting. It's pinging. Like sonar, the idea spread like fire in dry grass. If it was sonar, then 3i Atlas wasn't just transmitting. It was measuring, scanning, mapping, perhaps even responding to the light that hit it. One theory terrified everyone who heard it, that the object was using our own observation beams to study us, the same way radar maps the contours of an aircraft. We had, without realizing it, told it exactly where we were. In the following days, something stranger happened. Each time NASA's imaging systems recalibrated exposure, the pulse shifted. A new rhythm, a new gap, as though the object was mimicking the telescope's own adjustments. To some, it looked like intelligent reflection. To others, it was proof of communication. But deep inside the data, one hidden truth lingered. The pulse lag was shrinking. The response was getting faster. That's when fear replaced curiosity. The next internal memo carried a chilling directive. Cease direct visual observation until further notice. Telescopes across 3 continents were ordered to redirect. Officially, it was instrumental cooling cycles. Unofficially, it was panic. Because every time humanity stared at 3 Atlas, it blinked back, closer. A leak from an internal server revealed screenshots of the pulse frequency spectrum, a pattern repeating every 43 seconds, then 42, then 41. Some analysts interpreted the decay as Doppler drift, natural movement through space. But one senior physicist disagreed. He compared the intervals to telemetry feedback, the kind used in spacecraft adjusting orientation. His conclusion was brief. It's self-correcting. No one slept that night. Within 24 hours, the frequency vanished completely. The pulse was gone. But in its place, a new anomaly appeared. A sudden, sharp spike in the background radiation directly aligned with Earth's orbital path. It lasted less than a second, then silence. Instruments across observatories recorded the surge, yet no one could explain it. When the logs were cross-checked, the timestamp matched perfectly with NASA's last image of 3i Atlas, the one that was never publicly released. Someone in the control room whispered the question out loud. Though no one wanted to answer it, what if it was responding to the flash? The idea froze the room. If 3i Atlas was interacting with our light, then every photograph, every exposure, every scan wasn't just data collection, it was contact. Not through messages or technology, but through observation itself. The act of seeing had become the act of awakening. By dawn, the incident was locked behind layers of classification. Publicly, NASA dismissed the radiation spike as solar interference. Internally, the file was renamed Pulse Reflection Event. Access required Level 7 clearance. Only a handful of people ever saw the unedited waveform. Those who did described it as almost biological, not electronic noise, but rhythm. The kind you feel, not hear, and yet a week later, amateur astronomers began reporting something NASA couldn't hide. Faint electromagnetic fluctuations repeating at 43-second intervals. This time, not from deep space, but from near Earth orbit. Weak, distorted, like an echo bouncing off an unseen surface. The implications were staggering. If the pulse had followed the telescope's line of sight, then the object had aligned itself with the observation vector, with us. Inside the European Space Agency, a debate erupted. Was this residual interference, or was the object still responding? The data was inconclusive, but one thing stood out. The intervals were no longer shrinking. They were stabilizing, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm after chaos. The official explanation never came. Emails went unanswered. Internal message boards were wiped. Yet among scientists who had worked those nights, one phrase survived in whispered conversations: the feedback loop. According to leaked notes, the loop referred to a feedback phenomenon where the object's signal seemed to amplify each time it was observed. Every look, every photograph, every analysis increased the response strength, as if observation itself fueled it. That theory led to one final horrifying hypothesis, that 3i Atlas was designed to be found. Because in physics, feedback means growth. It means acceleration. It means interaction that can't be undone. When the Deep Space Network tried one last passive scan, the instruments picked up a short burst of low-band radiation, a single spike encoded with a repeating binary sequence. When decoded, it translated into a simple numerical ratio: 1.688, the golden ratio, the same constant found in living systems, growth patterns, and DNA. Coincidence? Or signature? After that, the systems went dark. The following morning, the internal server that stored the pulse data was reformatted under maintenance protocols. The event log vanished. The technicians who handled the final scan were reassigned to unrelated projects. But the world is full of echoes, and data never truly dies. Months later, a copy of the waveform surfaced anonymously on a private astronomy forum. When independent researchers reanalyzed it, they confirmed the impossible. The frequency's phase shift matched the movement of Earth around the Sun. In other words, the pulse wasn't random. It was tracking us, and that was when the question changed. No longer what is it, but what does it want? Was it measuring our position, our energy output, or simply confirming that we were capable of seeing it? Whatever the answer, the signal stopped abruptly 2 days after NASA's internal freeze. Some say it was interference. Others believe something silenced it. To this day, the official report reads, "No anomalous signals detected. Observation concluded." But the astronomers who were there, the ones who watched that pulse dance through the darkness, remember differently. They remember the way the readings seemed to anticipate their every adjustment. They remember how the numbers felt alive, and most of all, they remember the final moment before the feed went black, when the amplitude spiked one last time, as if the object had turned its gaze directly toward us. Maybe it was acknowledgement, maybe it was warning, or maybe it was something far more chilling, the cosmic equivalent of a mirror, reflecting not the universe but our own curiosity staring back. Because sometimes, discovery doesn't answer questions. It only reveals who's been asking them, and somewhere beyond the reach of our telescopes, something might still be listening, waiting for us to look again. It started as a whisper, a quiet message buried in the deep corners of the internet. A user on an encrypted astronomy forum claimed to have downloaded something extraordinary. 3 unreleased NASA images of 3I Atlas, pulled directly from the internal deep space network before they were taken offline. No one believed it at first. The username was anonymous, the timestamps mismatched, the story too wild to be true. But within hours, the first image appeared, blurry, raw, and unmistakably real. The photo showed what everyone expected, a faint shape against a field of stars. But the longer people stared, the more wrong it looked. The contours weren't random. They were geometric, clean, deliberate, like something assembled rather than formed. In the lower quadrant, faint streaks of light bled outward in perfectly parallel lines, symmetrical, as if captured through the reflection of a structure, not a rock. A silence followed, and then the chaos began. On Twitter, Reddit, and private science boards, the image spread like wildfire. Amateur astronomers downloaded, enhanced, and overlaid the leaked photo with NASA's last official release. The alignment was exact, same object, same frame, but the new version contained something extra, a halo, a dim circular distortion hovering just beyond the body of 3I Atlas, bending light around itself like gravity, caught in glass. Within hours, hashtags like #NotchAtlasLeak and Hidden Halo trended worldwide. People demanded answers. NASA gave none. By midnight, the post was gone, deleted, the user's account erased, and the image links, every one of them, returned an error message that read, "Access denied, content removed for data integrity review." But it was too late. Copies had already been saved, analyzed, and magnified. Someone had seen what wasn't meant to be seen. In one of the magnified sections, a data analyst noticed something subtle, a repeating flare pattern in the reflection. Every few seconds, faint bursts of brightness blinked along one edge of the object, evenly spaced, identical in strength. It wasn't random sunlight or sensor noise, it was rhythm. A pattern, and when converted into intervals, the sequence matched the 43-second pulse detected months earlier. The same pulse that vanished when NASA stopped tracking the object. The revelation spread through underground scientific circles. Some called it proof of an artificial mechanism, a system calibrating itself as it moved. Others said it was a reflection of our own radar. But that theory collapsed when private observatories confirmed the pattern in their independent archives. Whatever the light was, it wasn't ours. By morning, NASA released an official statement, polished, controlled. It read, "The images circulating online are the result of compression artifacts caused by light interference." No structural features have been detected, but for many that statement only deepened the suspicion. Why call a routine artifact classified? Why remove harmless images from public databases if there was nothing to hide? That day, a second image leaked, clearer this time, showing 3i Atlas at a slightly different angle. This one was worse. The reflection wasn't just brighter, it was moving. The flare shifted position across consecutive frames, trailing faint ionized gas like something adjusting in real time. Experts began to argue that the object was rotating in a way no tumbling rock could. Controlled, deliberate, responding to light itself. Forums exploded with theories. Some claimed it was a fragment of an alien probe, using solar energy as propulsion. Others believed it was an observation drone, mapping gravitational fields as it passed. A few even said it wasn't moving through space at all, but between dimensions, flickering between visibility and shadow. But one interpretation sent chills through every researcher watching the debate. A systems engineer from the European Space Agency ran an algorithm to analyze the changing light gradients in the leaked photo. The output revealed something impossible. The reflected light was bending toward the camera's position, not away. Meaning whatever 3i Atlas was, it wasn't just reflecting light, it was returning it. In other words, it was looking back. When that finding reached social media, panic turned to obsession. People flooded NASA's social pages demanding answers. What is it? Why are the new images hidden? Why does it look alive? The official accounts went silent. Even the routine astronomy feeds paused their daily posts. It was as if the entire scientific world had been told to hold its breath. Meanwhile, something stranger happened. A few of the independent researchers who had shared their enhanced versions of the leaked images began to vanish from public view. One by one, their accounts disappeared. Their shared folders were locked, their websites taken down for maintenance. Some tried re-uploading only for the files to corrupt mid-transfer. It was as if the data itself was being hunted. And then came the third image. It appeared quietly on a private Discord channel, posted by a user, claiming to be a subcontractor who worked on data relay for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The file was labeled Atlas JWV13 RAW. At first glance, it looked almost identical to the previous ones. Same field of stars, same faint shape. But when viewers inverted the image to negative color spectrum, a hidden pattern emerged in the background. A faint grid, evenly spaced points of light, formed a circular array around 3i Atlas. 12 dots, each glowing in perfect intervals, like satellites orbiting an invisible center. Some called it a lens effect. Others recognized something else, formation. If real, it meant 3i Atlas wasn't alone. Within hours, the file vanished. But its metadata remained. The coordinates tagged to the original photo pointed not to deep space, but directly along Earth's orbital path, a point less than 0.03 AU beyond our planet's trailing Lagrange position. For those who understood the numbers, it meant one thing. At the moment of capture, the object had aligned perfectly with Earth. When journalists asked NASA to verify the coordinates, the agency refused to comment. The story was buried under technical press releases about weather satellites and solar wind updates. But the scientists who'd seen the leaks couldn't unsee what they saw. For days, encrypted chat rooms filled with messages between astrophysicists and radio engineers, all repeating the same phrase, "We are being mapped." Inside the Sleep Lab's growing community, the implications spread like a chill. What if 3i Atlas was never about communication, but reconnaissance? What if every frame, every light echo, every pulse was a measurement, not of where we are, but what we are? And then something even stranger surfaced. Amateur astronomers who had downloaded the leaked images noticed a consistent distortion in the background stars, a warping that didn't match lens curvature. When they simulated the effect in imaging software, the distortion behaved as if light itself was bending around the object, like it was wrapped in a gravitational or electromagnetic field. That shouldn't be possible for something that small. Unless it wasn't small at all. Unless what NASA captured wasn't a speck of rock, but the tip of something larger. For a few hours, the idea spread like wildfire. Maybe 3i Atlas wasn't a visitor passing through space. Maybe it was part of a structure hidden inside it. Something cloaked in its own distortion. A mirror, a sensor, a watcher. By that evening, NASA's official archives went offline for scheduled maintenance. The notice lasted 47 minutes, a strange number considering the recurring 43-second pulse. When the site returned, the Atlas dataset was gone, erased. Every public file related to the new imagery had been replaced with a single message. This dataset has been relocated for data verification. The words were clinical, cold, empty. But behind them, the silence grew louder. Around the world, telescopes that once pointed toward the coordinates of 3I Atlas began to report intermittent interference, static bursts, frequency spikes, unexplained drops in signal clarity, as if something was jamming the spectrum at intervals. And each time the interference hit, it lasted exactly 43 seconds. Coincidence? Or a message? Scientists stopped commenting publicly. Private research forums went dark. A few quietly warned each other to stay off record. And in the middle of it all, one final leak surfaced. An internal NASA email marked Priority Critical. The subject line read only, "It's not reflecting." The body of the email, though redacted, contained a single surviving line of text. "Do not attempt further imaging. The world moved on." News outlets stopped covering the story, but those who watched the leak unfold, those who saw the forbidden images, still talk about them in hushed tones. The symmetry, the pulses, the way the light seemed to move with intent. Because once you've seen something looking back at you through the dark, you can never convince yourself it was only a reflection. And somewhere in the cold silence between planets, 3I Atlas still drifts, invisible, unreadable, and perhaps still watching. Maybe NASA deleted the images to protect us from panic, or maybe they deleted them because what they captured was never meant for human eyes. Whatever the reason, one truth remains. Every secret buried in the dark eventually finds its way to the light. And the next time the stars flicker, we might finally understand what those images were trying to tell us. Because if 3I Atlas was never a comet, then we were never just observers. We were the ones being observed. For months, the world had been fixated on the images, those crisp, haunting frames released by NASA, showing the distant silhouette of 3I Atlas. But buried inside those photographs was something no one had noticed before. Not until a small research team at the Goddard Space Flight Center ran the images through a spectral correction filter and realized that the light wasn't behaving normally. Behind the object, stars appeared bent, not blurred, bent, as if the space surrounding 3I Atlas had warped under its presence. At first, the team dismissed it as a lensing artifact, a common distortion that happens when bright light passes through cosmic dust. But the pattern didn't match anything they'd ever seen. Each frame showed consistent curvature, symmetrical on both sides, almost like the gravitational bow wave of a massive object. Only 3I Atlas wasn't massive enough to bend light like that. Something else was happening, something that hinted at control. When the data reached NASA's internal review board, the findings were flagged as classified irregularities. Yet the scientists who discovered it couldn't shake the unease. The light wasn't just bending, yet it was reacting. Each time a telescope captured it, the distortion changed ever so slightly, as if the act of observing it caused the object to shift. Dr. Emilia Hayes, an astrophysicist from MIT, described it later in her private notes. "It's almost like it doesn't want to be seen, like it can feel our gaze." Her notes were never published. They were confiscated 2 days later, under what NASA called data compliance review. But the leak had already started. Within a week, independent astronomers studying archived infrared data found the same pattern, not just in one photo, in all of them. Each image of 3I Atlas carried a faint shimmer in the surrounding vacuum, a low-frequency ripple invisible to the naked eye but undeniable in deep analysis. The ripple appeared rhythmic, pulsing, echoing the same 43-second interval that had haunted scientists since the object's first detection. Coincidence was no longer an option. A quiet panic began spreading across the observatories. No one dared to say it out loud, but everyone was thinking it. 3I Atlas wasn't just bending light, and it was manipulating it, controlling visibility itself, and that realization terrified them more than anything, because if it could bend light, it could hide in it. Suddenly, every corner of the cosmos felt less certain, Astronomers started to wonder how many other things might be out there unseen because they want to remain unseen. The data teams working overnight at the European Southern Observatory stopped turning off their monitors. They said the silence of the night made them uneasy. One intern recalled hearing her supervisor whisper, "What if it's still here but cloaked in the sunlight?" When those words were mentioned in the official meeting transcript, the line was redacted. Still, whispers spread. A whistleblower from inside JPL, later known only as Source A, leaked 3 high-resolution frames to a private astrophysics forum. Each showed something terrifying: faint interference rings surrounding 3I Atlas, rings that behaved like electromagnetic standing waves. The kind you'd expect from an active energy field. One physicist compared it to looking at heat shimmer on asphalt, except this shimmer existed in the vacuum of space. The implications were staggering. If the field was real, it meant the object wasn't drifting. It was shielded, wrapped in some kind of controlled energy envelope that altered light paths and deflected radiation. In human terms, it was invisible by design. As the images spread, the internet erupted. Some saw patterns resembling panels. Others claimed to spot a hexagonal frame hidden within the distortion. NASA dismissed it all as pareidolia, the human tendency to find meaning in chaos. But behind closed doors, internal memos revealed something very different. One email, later leaked to the press, carried a chilling line from a senior engineer. "If the readings are accurate, we're not looking at a solid body. We're looking at an adaptive shell." That phrase, adaptive shell, became the spark of countless theories. Was it a probe? A machine built to travel unseen across galaxies? Or something even stranger, a fragment of technology so advanced that it blurred the line between matter and light itself? In the weeks that followed, deep space sensors began detecting faint bursts of infrared radiation along the object's original trajectory, as though something massive had just passed through, leaving behind heat trails in empty space. But no object could be found at the coordinates. It was as if the source existed in 2 places at once, here and elsewhere. The phenomenon grew impossible to ignore. Researchers from Japan's JAXA agency ran simulations showing that the bending pattern matched the theoretical behavior of a localized gravitational pocket, a distortion field that could compress and redirect photons, effectively hiding anything inside it. Such technology didn't exist on Earth, not even conceptually, and yet there it was, floating quietly in the data. By now, fear had replaced curiosity. For every scientist trying to study it, there was another trying to bury it. Funding requests were denied, public access servers were temporarily unavailable, and those who pushed too hard started receiving anonymous messages warning them to stop. But the truth has a way of leaking, and especially when fear meets fascination. In early October, a small team of amateur astronomers in Chile captured a faint flicker, a light anomaly near the region where 3I Atlas had last been observed. It lasted only 6 seconds, but bore the same bending signature, the same pattern of distortion. When they enhanced the image, something eerie appeared in the background, a dark void where stars should have been. One of them whispered, "It's blocking the sky." Within 24 hours, the observatory's servers were remotely accessed and wiped clean. The next morning, NASA released an unrelated statement claiming system-wide technical maintenance. To the public, the story was dead. To those who knew, it had only begun. Weeks later, a retired image technician from the Deep Space Network came forward anonymously. He claimed to have processed the raw frames before they were compressed for public release. In his testimony, he said there was one frame, never published, showing something extraordinary. A second shadow, faint and distant, trailing behind 3I Atlas. But it wasn't following. It was mirroring, like a reflection in invisible glass. He described it as the moment I realized we weren't seeing it directly, only its echo. That statement, if true, changed everything. It meant the object could project decoys, false reflections, manipulating our senses to mask its real position. A defense system, or worse, camouflage. Dr. Hayes, the same astrophysicist whose notes were confiscated, later confided to a journalist off record, "If it can bend light, it can reshape truth. What we see is whatever it allows us to." The words were never aired. The interview was deleted before broadcast. By late December, 3I Atlas had become the ghost of the scientific world. present in data, absent in sight. Observatories quietly shifted focus. Funding for deep space optical surveillance mysteriously tripled under a new internal directive titled Project Echo. No details were ever disclosed, but one clause from the leaked proposal stood out. Study of adaptive photonic concealment mechanisms. Priority, ongoing observation of residual 3I signatures. To those still paying attention, the message was clear. NASA hadn't dismissed the phenomenon. It was watching it in secret, but what unsettled scientists most wasn't the object's power, it was its purpose. Because if 3I Atlas could hide itself from us, why reveal even a glimpse? Why allow cameras to see just enough to spark panic and then vanish? Some believed it was a test, a way to gauge our technological awareness, to see if humanity could notice it. Others feared it was something darker, an automated observer, scanning for civilizations advanced enough to recognize its presence. Either way, one fact remained undeniable. The object wanted to be seen. Just long enough to remind us that we're being watched. As the story faded from headlines, the fear lingered in labs and quiet hallways. Scientists no longer spoke of 3I Atlas by name. They referred to it only as the shadow. A few began wearing badges with a small engraved phrase, "Light lies," because after those images, light itself had become suspect. Every star, every gleam in the night sky, a question mark. Was it natural or was it something else, hiding behind the shimmer? And deep in NASA's restricted archives, those forbidden frames still exist. Somewhere, in the cold hum of a classified server, the original data rests, the ones showing the warping stars, the pulsing void, and the bending light that defied physics. The world may have moved on, but the scientists who stared too long at those images never forgot the feeling, that trembling sense of insignificance mixed with terror. Because when you realize that the darkness between stars might not be empty, the universe stops feeling infinite and starts feeling aware, and in that awareness lies the real terror. Not that 3I Atlas is gone, but that it's still here, hidden in the very light we use to see. The silence didn't end when NASA released the images, it only deepened. What began as a faint spark of curiosity turned into a storm of questions that no one dared to answer. The official statements grew colder, shorter, and vaguer, while the files connected to 3I Atlas began to vanish one by one from public archives. The new images were supposed to bring clarity, but they had done something else entirely. They had opened a door no one was ready to look through. In one of the last frames captured by NASA's Deep Space Array, a faint distortion appears just beyond the object's visible outline. It isn't a reflection and it isn't lens interference, it's movement, a subtle curving shimmer that bends the starlight behind it, as if space itself is warping in obedience to something unseen. When analysts enhanced the image, they found the distortion followed a repeating pulse, perfectly timed, perfectly symmetrical. And that's when the label appeared in the metadata of the file, Project Echo. No one outside NASA knows what that phrase means. It was never mentioned in any public document, yet the same tag surfaced across multiple datasets, each connected to high-sensitivity cosmic scans. Insiders claimed it stood for Electromagnetic Contact Harmonic Observation, a covert program designed not to broadcast signals into space, but to listen, to record, to respond only when something listens back. And according to the leaked logs, 3I Atlas listened back. When the images were cross-analyzed with older infrared readings, a shocking pattern emerged. The angles of reflected light formed arcs, not random, but deliberate, as if mapping a grid. Those arcs traced a single line of alignment through our solar system, directly toward Earth. It wasn't pointing at us, it was recording from us. Scientists noticed faint emissions from our planet's ionosphere echoing back along the same path, like a signal bouncing off an invisible mirror. Whatever 3I Atlas was doing, it was using our own radiation, our broadcasts, our satellites, our noise, to see us more clearly. Behind closed doors, the panic was no longer scientific. It was existential. What if 3I Atlas had not arrived by chance, but by instruction? What if it was never searching for life, only verifying what it already knew existed. In one deleted transcript from a NASA meeting, a senior physicist was quoted saying, "We always thought we were looking outward, but maybe all along the universe was calibrating its lens inward." That single line was enough to silence the room, because if true, it meant every telescope humanity had ever built, every signal we had ever sent, had been reflected back through something intelligent, something patient, and something ancient enough to remain invisible until we developed the technology to notice it. A month after those images surfaced, the network monitoring NASA's data feed reported an unexplainable surge, a silent flash across multiple sensors lasting less than a second. It wasn't an explosion or a starburst. It was more like a blink. When decoded, the wavelength matched the hydrogen line, the same constant found in 3I Atlas's original light signature. A perfect loop, the cosmic equivalent of a mirror held up to our own broadcast. And then, nothing. No one spoke publicly about it again. But leaks never stay buried forever. A whistleblower released a compressed frame from the final NASA capture. In it, 3I Atlas appears dimmer, not fading, but shifting. The background stars curve unnaturally, as if wrapped around an invisible outline. Viewers described it as a hole-wearing light. Some called it camouflage, others something worse, the sign of an active gravitational field, bending visibility to hide itself. If that's true, then 3I Atlas didn't just leave, it learned how to stay unseen. Weeks later, radar systems from independent observatories detected faint ripples on the far edge of the Kuiper belt. They weren't strong enough to trace, but their interval matched the exact rotation speed calculated for 3I Atlas a year ago. The implication was immediate and horrifying. Whatever it was still here. Not gone, not traveling, but waiting. NASA never confirmed those readings, of course, but the silence said enough. Meetings were cancelled, conferences postponed, and researchers reassigned to unrelated projects. Files referencing 3I Atlas now redirect to archived comet studies. Even the official name was replaced in databases with a generic label, interstellar debris, 2024 V13. As if renaming it could erase what it had done to our understanding of existence. Yet in labs around the world, a few scientists kept searching. They noticed something strange in Earth's own electromagnetic background, a repeating pulse every 17 minutes and 42 seconds, the same interval once recorded from 3I Atlas. It's too weak to hear, too faint to feel, unless you know exactly where to listen. The signal doesn't grow louder or weaker, it just is, constant, steady, waiting for acknowledgement. Some say it's coincidence, others whisper that the echo we hear isn't from deep space at all, but from something reflecting within our own orbit. They're a perfect mimic of our transmissions, returning them slightly altered, slightly delayed. Like a voice repeating your words just after you speak. So now the question becomes unavoidable. What if 3I Atlas never left the solar system? What if the new NASA images were never about what's out there, but about what's still here? Because maybe the terror isn't that we've been found, but that we've been understood. For centuries, humanity has gazed into the cosmos believing discovery would bring comfort, proof that we're not alone. But comfort fades when the unknown stops being distant. What happens when the sky you studied starts studying you back? Perhaps 3I Atlas was never a visitor. Perhaps it was a reminder that intelligence in this universe doesn't always arrive with noise and light, but with silence and reflection. That observation itself is a form of communication. That being seen is the first step toward being known. And maybe, being known is the most terrifying fate of all. The latest NASA images didn't end the mystery. They confirmed it. What they reveal isn't a shape or a structure or a message. What they reveal is awareness, an intelligence that doesn't need to announce itself, a watcher that doesn't need to move closer, because it already knows where we are. And somewhere in that quiet darkness, behind the mirrored edge of a photograph, something is still watching. Not hostile, not kind, just waiting to see what we'll do next. If you've been with me through this journey into the silence, this is your reminder that curiosity is both our gift and our warning. The universe may not shout its truths, Sometimes it whispers them through the cracks of data, through the tremors of fear, through a single photograph that changes everything. If you believe there's more out there, that discovery still hides in the shadows of what we can't explain, then you belong here, with us. This is the Sleep Lab, where science meets the unknown. If you liked this video, if it made you think, or if it kept you awake just a little longer tonight, please subscribe, leave a like and turn on the bell icon, because the next image might already be waiting, and when it appears, you'll want to be awake to see it.